Sci-Fi.
Drei Gläser.
Two. One.
That's no moon.
What's up, everybody? We are live. It is episode 23 of the Hardcore Casual Podcast. He is Jay of F1 Podcast fame. I am Mason of Radio Infamy, and we are the conversation at the It's a Bird, It's a Plane behind you. So, hello, everybody. How you doing, Jay?
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice, I'm doing okay, man. How are you doing today?
I am doing better than last week. Still a lot of stress, but we're doing all right. One of the big things this week is, so last week, I was literally just getting home from having seen Superman so that we could get out a spoiler-free Superman review for the show, and so that we could do the show. Jay had given up his invitation to go see Superman later that evening. So now, Jay, you have seen Superman, so we will end the podcast with a spoiler-loaded deep dive into
we're going to
Superman.
spoil the shit out of it, yeah.
Yes. So I'm looking forward to that. We've mentioned a couple of things here and there, but we haven't really talked about it. So I'm anxious to really get into the ins and outs, the nitpicks, and the favorites, and all that stuff with you about the Superman movie. So looking forward to that. Speaking of there's a couple of things I want to touch on real quick. So one of the things was this time last week we were very close to 100 subscribers. We had not gotten there yet, but we were that close. We were closing in, and we had also mentioned that once we hit 100 subscribers, we will open the merch store. And and like I said, it's not going to be like as soon as we hit 100, we're flipping the switch, but we're going to actively work towards getting that open.
Yeah.
So that'll be soon, within the next week or two. We'll get that going. But that leads me to say we hit 100 subscribers. We are now at 100.
Awesome,
actually,
man.
Yeah, let me double check. Let me see if we are at 105 subscribers. So
That's
thank
awesome,
you,
dude.
everybody. That is our second goal. So first, we wanted to hit 50. We got 50. We wanted to hit 100. We got 100. So now our next goal is 250. And
Well, and not only congratulations to you and us, but congratulations to the fans of the show that were able to convince their friends to also join the show. So thank you very much for all your help getting that done. And hats off to everybody involved. Thank you.
yes, thank you to you as well, Jay, for all the work that you've done, and congratulations to you too. I'll give you the congrats as well. So happy 100 to us and you guys, the viewers. It's been wild, and what's really crazy about it is it's always stuff that you don't expect. Like whenever we hit 50, it was a really big weekend for the channel, as we had really started getting down and we're changing the way we edited, and we were doing all these different things. And so we actually hit 50 subscribers, and we broke our first 4-digit view video on the same weekend. And this weekend, or over this span of time since the last show, we've had a couple of things that also have lined up. One, this was the first time that I had an upload go catastrophically wrong since we've started the channel. I put all this work into this Superman spoiler-free review. I even watched it through so many times, exported it, uploaded it. Boom, it's on its way. It launches at 8 in the morning on Sunday, 8 Central Time. And then it's a disaster. Or at least I think it's a disaster. Apparently, a lot of people didn't seem to agree that it was the disaster that I thought it was, but I edit it very tight to make sure that it's as clean as it can be. And my cuts, there was a desync issue, essentially. So it was desynced from the actual video, and the cuts would happen, and there would be like a fraction of a second between those cuts where the audio was not what I intended it to be. And so I pulled it down, and then I tried to re-edit it. I tried to do all these fixes. It didn't work. I was frustrated. I was texting Jay, and ultimately I was like, okay, I just put it back, and I was like, okay, you know what? We'll just put it out there. Obviously, it was opening weekend. People are going to be searching for it. So I went ahead and threw it out there, just added a disclaimer to the description that's still there. And I was like, I was kind of gutted by it. And for a couple of days, it was a turd, man. Nobody was watching it. I didn't really expect him to. And then all of a sudden I woke up one day and it had gotten like hundreds of views overnight. And then it's now currently our 4th most watched video of the channel so far, out of nowhere. And then with that, not only so this thing that I thought was a catastrophic failure, not only did we get a lot of views, but we also got a lot of subscribers, and we've now crossed over 100 subscribers. So it was I don't know, it was heartening to have that. So thank you guys, appreciate it. But there we go. I just wanted to get that out of the way. 100 subscribers, merch store coming soon. Thank you all so much. So there we go.
All righty. Well, that was a long one. We obviously are happy all that happened, man, because you guys don't realize how much work he puts into this thing. I don't even realize how much work he puts into these segments. But I guarantee you, I hear about them, the numbers and what's going on with them. And I'm just so thankful he's here to get some of this stuff done. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
But man, let's do our quick news and get it out of the way. And I think we wanted to start with what, games or media?
Yeah, we'll do games. So it's been kind of so this isn't going to be a huge thing where there's not really any earth-shattering news.
Right.
Currently, there's not really any big game releases going on right now. So what we're going to do this week is we're basically going to have some quick shot news stories. So we'll have some quick shot game stories. Well, as quick shot as it gets around here, right? Who knows how long we could end up talking about. We're going to have some quick shot game stories, some quick shot media stories, and then we're going to go into some more long form stuff. So then on games, Jay has put a lot of work into compiling some game of the year contenders. I guess it's kind of like a consensus list of the kind of things that everybody's sort of considering.
Yeah, it is. And I really want to save it because I really want to get everybody gauge your reaction. And it was a lot of compilation between a lot of sources. So plus I know we're going to have our own 2 cents on all. I definitely am. And I tested it out on my son on the way back from his mom's house today. And yeah, I think he actually agreed with me, which is rare because that almost never happens. But anyway, yes, I'm looking forward to that part.
And then we will end with our spoilerific deep dive into Superman and actually finally talking about our own thoughts and opinions on it. So there we go. We can start with the games. Do we want to start with what you have in game? Did you have any quick shots on games, or were all your quick shots media?
I did. I have 3 actually. My first off is super quick, and this is just serious hats off and kudos to Black Lab Games. And for those unfamiliar with them, they have in their library of titles, their biggest part. Battlestar Galactica Deadlock was probably their biggest title. It's a turn-based Battlestar Galactica game that utilizes the soundtrack, the look, and the graphics that basically were from the 2004 series. They have another game called Fantasy General Invasion, and this is specifically Fantasy General 2, which is basically an RTS that lets you just use these fantastical armies to do basically map conquering and combat and battlefields and whatnot. And then the last one they do is a turn-based medieval, historically accurate RTS, which is called Field of Glory 2. And they offered all 3 games during Steam Summer Sale for free. And they're still available for free, I think, through like the 23rd. And I just want to say, in an age where we're talking about games going to $80 and an ever increasing price for this and that and DLC, and yes, these 3 games have tremendous amounts of DLC that you still have to buy. I mean, tremendous amounts. But to get the base games for free and not have to, you're saving $120. These all three of them are $40 a piece.
It's also a great opportunity. Like this isn't a demo. This is base game. So let's say you can go into it and you play it. You don't like it. Okay, fine. No harm, no foul. You don't have to buy any of the other stuff. But if you do like it, it just gives you an opportunity. It's one of those things where it's the fine balance where if you develop that good relationship with the customer wants to, like I as a customer I will want to buy the stuff that they make to support that team. It's the guy, like the guys that make Warframe. Like the Warframe is free. Then you can support them via the different frames that they make and stuff like that. Like it helps build this relationship with the customer where they're not just buying a product from you. They're actually buying something with the intention of supporting you. And this is a good way to help cultivate that.
Yeah. And, just using Battlestar Galactica Deadlock as an example, being old enough to have watched the original show live in 1978 and to see the reimagining in 2004, I see the smirk on your face for
I wasn't gonna say anything.
That's fine. And then the shit show that was Battlestar Galactica 1980, which lasted for less than a season, and to get to play this game, which basically reimagines the very first Cylon War, which, if you don't know, the 2004 show started 33 years into the armistice of the first Cylon War, but to give us a chance to go back and play through the history of the first Cylon War is pretty amazing. And we're actually using the old ships and the old base stars and Galacticas from the 1978 show.
Now, was the game considered canon for?
Yes, it is.
Awesome.
So, and then they have all kinds of, like I said, they have DLCs that add all the new stuff from the reimagined series. And if you remember the sound score, music wise, from the show that we just had most recently, it has that exact one. So it's cool. And the Newtonian physics where the sound is really muffled in space. Technically it should be no sound, but they went with more of a muffled sound, and it does that whole bit. So it's really cool. So anyway, I didn't want to talk about this for a long time, but to offer 3 games for free during a summer sale, again, congratulations to Black Lab Games, and thank you very much, because I downloaded all 3.
Yeah, I might do that. Even though I don't have a gaming PC, I do have like the editing laptop that I do with the show. I'm like,
which would run all 3 of them.
Yeah, exactly. They're strategy games. They're not gonna be resource hogs. I could run them. So go ahead, just get them.
Yeah, you should definitely get them. They're good. My other game thing was, thanks to Game Pass again. Like Black Lab Games, thanks to Game Pass, I get to play Tony Hawk 3 and 4. Which is another blast from my college days, getting to play that. And Tony Hawk 3 was always my favorite because it actually had the skateboard that I had as a child. So the deck that I worked my butt off to get. So being able to go back in and do that and play that again has been wonderful. And then, of course, my last gaming piece was Star Wars Genesis. And I know I've brought this up before. This is a total conversion mod for Starfield. And when I say total conversion, you're not going to know you're playing Starfield.
If you had not told me that it was Starfield, there is zero chance I would have ever guessed that. I mean, there is no similarity. It doesn't even function the same. Like, it doesn't even have the same UI. Like, it's completely unrecognizable as Starfield.
Yeah. And this guy's going for total Star Wars immersion, so much so that all the stores and all the diners and all the cantinas, they all use the Arabesh Star Wars specific language. So now I'm going to have to teach myself that, because I have no idea what half this shit says when I'm walking around.
That is dedication. I would just be like, oh, that's cool. Great job for them. I wouldn't be like, oh, I've got to know it. It's just going to say like ramen.
Yeah, ramen. Yeah. But they just released the 8.1 update, so I updated that today, and even the updating process is getting better and more streamlined as this guy learns. A lot like you with these segments, the more this guy learns, the tighter this update process gets, and it's definitely better than the 4 hours on the original install, that's for sure. But yeah, he added Star Destroyers just floating out in space. He added Naboo and Tatooine and Titan, which is like Home of the Force, and there's a lot of new stuff on it.
I'm really curious to see what happens with this guy because every time you've shown me something from this, it gets grander, crazier in scale, and he really seems like one of those guys that he started doing a thing, and then he realized he could do more within the framework than he thought that he could, and then he kept expanding, and then he's gotten it to where it's completely unrecognizable, and it's going to get to the point where eventually what he wants to do won't be able to be done by modding this game, you know, and where does he go from there? He seems like the guy where he's going to be like at some point where he's just going to be like, you know what, I'll just make my own thing wholesale, and just build it from scratch. I'm very curious to see what happens with him because he seems like one of those guys that could really turn into something, do one of these things where, his next game gets announced at Game Awards or something like that as one of these one-man or small team projects.
Well, and to that point, I would say that just a reminder, Counter-Strike started out as a Half-Life mod. But I also want to say that I'm scared to death, absolutely scared to death that this guy's going to get grabbed up by Disney and just become another person in the fold.
Grabbed up and shut down.
Yeah, or both. But anyway, that's all I had on the gaming front.
Well, I had a few things, and I
know you did.
Yeah, let me reorder this. I'll do this one first because this one will probably take the least potential for going down the rabbit hole. But before Nintendo Switch 2 released, and again, full disclosure, I own a Nintendo Switch 2. Like I enjoy the Nintendo Switch. I play the games. But before it released, this was one of these things that they just kind of like slid out that we brought attention to on the show where I was like, that makes me uncomfortable. And that was their updated end user license agreement where they basically said, hey, we reserve the right to essentially brick your console if we feel that you have acted outside of the terms of this license. Now, saying it that way sounds fine, but the whole thing is, have you ever read an end user license agreement? No, you haven't. Neither have I, because they take forever. They're huge. They're these massive things. So they're so broad a lot of times in what they consider to be out of bounds. And I was like, man, this seems like it's going to be kind of ripe for the picking where they can basically just, where they say like, well, it's outside of the terms of the agreement. It's basically just going to boil down to at our discretion. And it wasn't long. There's now been multiples, but there was one in particular, a user that took to Reddit, a user named D Manthe, and he basically described what happened with like his experience. So he had his Switch 2. He went on Facebook Marketplace, and someone was selling some Switch 1 game cartridges. So he was like, okay, good deal. I'll just buy these on Facebook Marketplace, and Switch 2 is backwards compatible. It's completely backwards compatible. So they
still have cartridges.
Yes. And
sorry, I'm completely ignorant on Switch. This is how totally detached from Nintendo.
They have these little game cartridges, and they use the Switch 2 uses the same game cartridges as Switch 1. So easy backwards compatibility. Okay. And this was a thing that I'd mentioned too on Switch 2. Some of these don't actually contain the game; they contain passes for the whole thing. But this does not include that. But so he saw these Switch 1 games. He bought those, put them in his Switch. It said that the game needed an update. Okay, so he updated the game, did whatever, went to bed, got up the next morning, turned it on, and he was greeted with a message that said that he had been banned from all of Nintendo's services. So he wasn't, his system was not technically bricked, but he was banned from any online services. Not only was he banned from the online services, he was so banned, I guess you could say, that he did
How banned was he?
He was so banned that he couldn't even download the games that he had already bought. Because the Nintendo, like, it's got a memory, it's very small memory. So it's one of those things where it's like you buy the game, it's in your library, but if you're not playing it, then you don't really need to download it. Leave it there, leave space for other stuff. So he couldn't download games that he had already bought. And so basically what had happened was these game cartridges that he had bought on Facebook Marketplace turned out to be bootlegs, and completely unbeknownst to him. So he uploaded these bootleg versions, patched them, all that. Nintendo was able to recognize that. They banned him. Now, thankfully, he was able to go through their customer support. He was quickly able to speak to an actual human instead of going through the questions where it's like, okay, is it this? Okay, is it which of these options best describes your issue? And he was quickly able to get to a person. He explained the whole story. They basically asked him to provide any kind of proof or evidence that he could. He gave them screenshots and links to the marketplace listing that he had utilized, and they were able to get that reversed. So he's now able to play his Switch 2 again. That's great. But it's that kind of thing where we're getting real to a point where I'm not comfortable with that level of access where they can just be like, okay, boom. You know, if it was that easy to turn it off, they could have reached out to him. You have to use your email to set up your account. So they had his email address. You would think that, like, it would just be better to be able to like reach out to these people and say like, hey, this is what we noticed. You have 15 days to respond back, or 48 hours or something, better than just banning them and waiting for them to get in contact. Because if he would have just been like, oh, well, I guess I'm screwed, and never contacted anybody, that would have been it. But anyway, so there you go. My dystopian fear of that end user license agreement update. It is arriving. We are there. So there's that.
Yeah. And like you said, nobody reads those things. So, you know, and your standard buyer for this thing is probably going to be parents. I would still say the majority is going to be parents that are buying this for their kids. And then their kids go online and say, hey, if you do this, you can access this and this and that. Then they end up with a brick console and their parents have no idea.
Yeah. The next thing that I have is just to touch on a thing that we had touched on before, which, and I'm sure you guys have heard about it from other sources as well, as the Stop Killing Games initiative, where this is an actual petition. So this is not like a typical petition like you'll see on US stuff whenever it's, you know, they have these different petition websites. This is an actual government petition in the EU. This is to like get it considered by EU Parliament. That's why this one is so important, is because this one could actually create change. So they needed 1 million signatures. They have surpassed that. However, there's a couple of things. So one is, there's anytime you do something like this, and especially whenever you're talking about the level of signatures that you need, like that sheer number of that volume of signatures, some of these signatures are going to be duplicated or invalid or something like that. They have to go through this process to knock out any invalid or duplicated signatures that do not count. So the more, the better. Pad that number as much as possible. So once they knock out all of those invalid signatures, they're still above that 1 million that they need. So currently, I believe at last count, they were about 1.2 million. So they would really like to get to 1.3 million. They do have the support of it. And I don't know how European Parliament works, because, and I can't pronounce this guy's name to save my life, but he is a vice president of European Parliament. So apparently they have multiple vice presidents of European Parliament. I have no idea how that works, but he is in support of this initiative. So they do have support within Parliament. Obviously, there's the European Games Association, or whatever they call it. There, let me see what it is. Sorry, I don't want to have the dead air there, but there's basically a Video Games Europe. It's a board of members of Microsoft and Activision and all this stuff. They have fired back, and they're basically saying that the request is unreasonable. And again, if you're not familiar with Stop Killing Games, the request is basically pretty straightforward in that, hey, once you buy a game, you should own that game. So we have all of these online games, these games that live online and online only, that whenever they go away, they just disappear. So whenever they turn the services off, they're gone. Like Anthem, whenever they turn the lights out on Anthem, you can't even play through the story mode of Anthem anymore. And this is something so that if there's anything like that and they want to sunset the servers, fine, but allow users the ability to host private servers, things like that, so they can still enjoy their games. This board made up of these game companies is saying that this is too restrictive, it's disproportionate, and it's unreasonable. So they're pushing back on it. But if what would get passed in Europe, it would be one of those snowball effects where it would really benefit us in the US as well. Because basically, with anything, if they're going to have to make it work one way for some massive demographic, it's easier just to apply that across the board. So this would be a big deal.
Part of me,
stop killing games.
Part of me worries about speaking of demographics, the average age of an EU parliamentarian.
This guy actually looks not old. Like he looks great. He's looking like a middle-aged guy, like younger, lower end of middle-aged.
So I'm just saying, we've just now got to a point in this country where most of the current congressmen rode skateboards and played Call of Duty. So, and still probably play Call of Duty. So it always makes me wonder when you're talking about, and I'm not as familiar with the EU Parliament as I am with the UK's Parliament. But, if you were talking about the UK Parliament, you're talking, most of those people inherited that. Yeah. And it's drastically older. So part of me wonders when they see a bill or a movement come across their desk that they know they're going to have to, it's like, oh my God, just, hey, somebody throw this in there Friday before lunch. Whoever shows up will vote on it. Whoever doesn't, whatever, and then it doesn't get the care and focus it deserves.
Yeah. So that's why it's so good to have this guy putting his weight behind it, is it's getting in front of people.
Good deal.
And so this is it doesn't really tie into, like, they wouldn't be affected necessarily by this, but it's a thing that came into play this week. And so I wanted to kind of tie it in there. And that is something we've talked about before about games getting delisted and going away. We had mentioned before, one of the games that we loved was the Transformers games, War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron, which were done by High Moon Studios, the studio heavily hit by the Xbox layoffs. But those games were phenomenal. Absolutely stellar. They were great. Just games on their own, regardless of whether they were Transformers games, even like they were just great games. The mechanics were solid. The story was great. And now you can't get them. You can't find them. You can buy physical copies. I actually looked before here. There was a pre-owned physical copy of War for Cybertron that you could get on Amazon for $100. $100 for a pre-owned copy of this, because they know you can't get it anywhere else. And the reason for that is licensing. And licensing is so weird. So it hit again this week is the thing. So there was a game that came out a few years ago called John Wick Hex. And it was John Wick translated into a strategy game. So that game, which I had never played up until this week, thankfully I saw this news story a couple days ago, and it mentioned that as of July 17th, that game goes away forever. It's delisted. It's gone. And so I bought it for the first time. I bought it. I own it. I have it on the Switch 2 now. So thankfully I have it. Unfortunately, that the day that we do this show is the day that you can no longer get it. So I apologize if you hear this and you're like, oh man, I wish I could have, but it's
well, man, I brought up Alpha Protocol many moons ago, and it had been delisted forever. Again, another title that you could only get physically, and they sent a petition into Steam, and Steam released it, put it back on the store. I don't know how they did that. I'm sure they had to contact Obsidian and be like, hey, we're getting people that really want to play this game. And they put it back out.
So that's the thing where it's like, so the reason I bring this up is because just like Stop Killing Games, where it's like, okay, these online games, and once they go away, they're gone. There's got to be something with like these licensed games. Like I don't understand licenses. We have some licensed games that have been around for decades and you can still get them, right? And then you have these licensed games like this John Wick Hex that, even though there's been no official statement, that's really the only reason that anybody can see that it would have done this, where it comes out and you get it for a few years, a license expires, it goes away, and now it's gone. Like all this work, it's the same effect as the thing that Stop Killing Games is trying to prevent, where all this work, years of work that people have put into it, it now disappears. Voice work, all that, it now becomes harder to access for these voice actors. And we've had it happen to so many games. John Wick Hex, again, being only the most recent. Like I said, War for Cybertron. There have been so many games where this has happened to it. And you had brought up in, like the Tony Hawk stuff, and you'd mentioned like the songs, the losing license for the songs. And even that, I can be like, okay, I guess I still wish that would be fixed, where I was like, okay, they're remastering it. So obviously a remaster, remake, I would understand if they can't get the song. But whenever you just made the game, like the game was made, you paid the license fee to make the game, you made the game, it's not being updated, it's not being remastered, it's just existing in the same state that it was released in, and it still hadn't been delisted. That makes no sense to me. I get if you wanted to remaster it, re-release it, something like that. I can understand how that would cause a licensing issue, because that would probably be outside of whatever you agreed to. But the fact that it's still the exact same game that you released before, it just makes no sense to me that they could just snatch that out. So I don't know. I wish there was something we could do in regards to that. So John Wick Hex, unfortunately, just the most recent, victim in this delisting as a result of a license issue. So
that sucks, man.
There's that. And here's one that I know that you will take no pleasure in, but you were a prophet, sir. It was only a couple of weeks ago, maybe 1 week ago. My memory is it's been a crazy couple of weeks, guys. But whenever we were talking about the Xbox layoffs and all of this horrific stuff that happened, where 9,000 people, over 9,000 people, just lost their job out of nowhere, right? And one of the things that you mentioned was, man, wouldn't it be awful if they had actually designed the AI tools that replaced them? Well, as it happens, Jay, King of Activision Blizzard King, so of Candy Crush fame, that King, mobile, master, whatever, the biggest mobile game maker out there, King. Microsoft laid off 200 people from King, and they were primarily level designers, and they had been making these AI tools to make designing levels quicker, easier, faster, because AI could help them design it. So, and then that is what is replacing them. So they literally did create and train the AI program that is now replacing them. It is the absolute nightmare scenario. And yeah, it is horrific. And this again, always happens when they do this. Microsoft talks about how they have more players, they're making more money, people are spending more time on it than ever before, which it's still the most tone deaf thing, why you would go and say this as you lay people off. It blows my mind anytime there's record profits around these layoffs, where it's like, well, then why did these people need to lose their jobs for these? You're making record profits. I don't know. Anyways, but there you go. You prophesied this. So yeah, the team at Blizzard, or sorry, the team at King of Activision Blizzard King, yeah, they did actually create the AI overlords that would overtake their jobs.
Wow. I mean, it's literally a Cylon apocalypse at that place. The AI apocalypse.
It's wild, dude. It's
wild. A manufactured one, but it's still an AI apocalypse.
And the only other thing that I have that should be just as a quick shout out is one of my favorite creators in the video game space is SkillUp. And SkillUp actually started his channel as a help channel for The Division whenever The Division came out. And love Division. We actually just jumped back into The Division this week and everything. That's been great. But he now has this huge channel. I love his stuff. And he always has this piece that he does every week called This Week in Video Games. And they actually just did a special announcement just today that he has started a user-supported, there will be no ads on it ever, video game website, like video game news website called thisweekinvideogames.com, that the users can support it. They've committed to never having ads on the screen. I looked at the site. It is a fantastic looking site. You can join for free and you'll get access to most stuff, the previews, the reviews, all that stuff. Then there's currently two tiers of support to get some of the other things on it, but looks great. Love Skill Up, love his stuff. And
Good deal.
so, yeah, having a video game website, they have their own, there's no AI on it. It's all real people doing real news. They have original news stories. And again, they have no sponsorships, no ads, nothing. So there will never be an ad. You don't have to worry about any money swaying what you're reading. So there you go. Thisweekinvideogames.com. Just thought I'd shout it out. So that's all I have for my video game quickies.
Well, I have a couple of TV ones. My first off is huge shout out to Andor season 2. The show has secured 14, count them, 14 Emmy nominations coming up. I don't know if they'll win all of them, but to say that you're a 14-time Emmy nominated show, they basically got nominated for every single category that they could possibly be nominated for: best show, best actor, best support, best costumes, best screenplay, best production, special effects, best voiceover for Alan Tudyk. Hopefully he gets it. Best music. I mean, it's literally everything.
It is awesome that they got nominated. Now, granted, I do fear that they will likely not win any of the big ones anyway, just because there seems to be this bias against sci-fi movies whenever you have these big awards shows and stuff like that. They'll give them like, oh yeah, give them production design, give them this, but to get the big ones, best actor, best this, a lot of them kind of get the shaft whenever it comes to that. So I'm not optimistic of their chances of some of the big ones, but I think it would be awesome if they could get it.
And I definitely both agree and disagree with you this time. I agree with you that typically fantasy and sci-fi gets snubbed. Lord of the Rings: Return of the King being an exception, not the rule.
And Heath Ledger's portrayal as Joker.
And Heath Ledger's
portrayal, and obviously we know he got that because of his untimely passing. I mean, he did a great job, but deserved. But had he not passed away, unfortunately, he would not have won.
But this show it's not really sci-fi, and it's not really fantasy, and it's gritty, and it's dark, and it's a slow burn, and they did a great job. I really feel like this time they might be able to clean some of the big ones. Maybe not all of them, because I'd also like to add that the show The Pit, which is a drama about a Pittsburgh-based hospital that's led by Noah Wyle.
I have heard so many good things about this, and I have yet to watch it, but I've heard amazing things.
It got 13 nominations. So I feel like between the two shows, they're probably going to clean the shop. And also got to admit that in this day and age, Andor's one thing it's got going for it is its incredibly diverse cast. It touches on a lot of themes that are hitting home with people these days. So I really feel like it's got a decent shot at some of the big ones.
I've still got to get on it.
And then my other TV one is, and this story actually started when I was in high school, and I'm a huge fan of dense, complex science fiction. You have to be to read Dune.
Love it. Dune is my favorite book ever.
But I read a trilogy of books by one of the legends of science fiction, Isaac Asimov, who also wrote the Robot. He was the inspiration for the I, Robot movie with Will Smith, who wrote the Robot Rules and the Robot trilogy. But he also wrote the Foundation trilogy. And I was so afraid that this show on Apple TV was going to ruin that trilogy for me that I didn't want to watch it. And I put it off for the better part of a year and a half. Well, I finally started watching it, and I'm halfway through the first season, and I love it. I mean, I love everything about it. Does it take some creative liberties? Absolutely. Does the cast make it worth its while? Yes. I love Jared Harris. Loved him when he played Anderson Dawes in the Expanse. He's been great in everything he's done. They got one of the Harry Potter kids in there. Did a great job. But so far, I'm loving it. If you don't know, I mean, this is the show right here, and it's a unique, future that we live in this, where there's bazillion people living on multiple planets. And Jared Harris's character plays Harry Seldon, who comes up with the idea of using math to predict history, and it's called psychohistory, is what it's called. And a lot of
Wouldn't
people
that be
consider
predicting the future?
Yes, and he's predicting the future through history, basically, using historical norms and trends, and of course it's basically marked as pseudoscience or fringe science, and of course the Empire wants to keep their power, so they want to subdue him, and they choose exile over execution, and he basically creates a gigantic digital encyclopedia on a different planet on the terminus, and
so he makes intergalactic WikiLeaks.
Exactly, that's exactly what it is. It's intergalactic WikiLeaks. Lee Pace is excellent in it as one of the emperors. But yeah, definitely if you have access to Apple TV, these are the books from the original trilogy. I think there's now 9 books, but these are the 3 that I read. And you can get them all in an anthology if you don't want to buy 3 separate books. But I would definitely give it a read, especially if you like Dune. But also super excellent.
Well, I do like Dune, so I will have to give this a shot because Dune is my absolute favorite book. And I will say, Apple TV has turned into one of the, and now granted their output, their output is limited right now, but so right now they're big. They are the most consistent hitters whenever it comes of the streamers right now, where everything they're putting out they're doing really good stuff. I was terrified whenever they did the Silo thing, and I actually prefer the show that they did to the books of Silo.
I haven't done either one. I haven't read the book or seen the show yet. Was the show good?
Yeah, show's great.
Okay.
And but they're just knocking out stuff consistently. They're doing great. I know they've got Severance, which I haven't watched yet. It's on my list. I know that's
Shrinking
being praised everywhere. Ted Lasso. So they're knocking out bangers, man. This is what, for a while, Netflix was, everything they put out was a banger. And now Netflix, it's like everything they put out is like hit or miss. Even the hits don't make it to 3 seasons. But Apple's doing really great stuff. So props to them. I'm glad that, and something that's sci-fi, especially that brand of sci-fi, that sort of, that this, I don't know, like kind of like Empire focused kind of sci-fi, like that sort of, that, like you said, Dune, that sort of like Dune vibe of sci-fi. You just don't see that done very well or even attempted. So the fact that,
and admittedly, it would be hard to do, man. I mean, it's super dense. I mean, I can say I love Dune and then still say there are parts of that book that read like a microwave oven manual.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
Well, I loved it because it never had these big, or at least people might disagree with me, but I didn't feel as though it ever like did any big exposition. Now there is a lot to it. It is very dense, but usually it would introduce you to it by dropping you into a situation and giving you enough clues that you would figure out how the world worked, how the politics worked, all that stuff. And I love being sort of thrown into a situation, but given all the tools that you need to be able to decipher it. And Dune was one of the best ways of that. Now, granted, like I said, it is dense. Totally agree. So the people that watch the first Dune movie and they say, it was boring, I couldn't get into it, I totally understand. Don't necessarily agree, but I 100% where they're coming from, because it is super dense. There's a lot of political intrigue. You got to know the machinations behind everything. So anyways, the fact that we now have some really incredible Dune movies that are being, created by Denis Villeneuve or Villeneuve, or however you want to pronounce it. And then we have the foundation here with Apple. I'm very excited that we have our cup runneth over for the first time in a long time with good, solid sci-fi options.
Yeah, and you should definitely watch it. It is very good. But
I shall.
that's all I had before we move into some. At least all I've got is long form stuff right now.
That's all I've got. So we can go into the game of the year stuff.
Well, the game of the year stuff can't start without a conversation that I had with my 16-year-old son, Alex. So, and this is a conversation that actually you and I started when it was first announced, but we both love Ghost of Tsushima. It is an excellent fictional history-based game that basically tells the story of the Mongol invasion of mainland Japan on the island of Tsushima.
And it beats Assassin's Creed at its own game.
It murders Assassin's Creed at its own game.
Yep.
And excellent story of Jin Sakai. The actor they brought in to do was perfect. He did such a great job that even the mocap seeing his,
and just the environmental biomes as well. Stunning.
Yeah.
Stunning.
Dude, riding through the dogwoods with them flying, and the petals are coming off,
or the flowers, and you like bend down on your horse and you run your hand across the petals.
Yes.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And the way the lighting would shift depending on what, like you'd go into a region, it would become almost immediately autumn, and you'd have the orange and browns and light yellow leaves just going. I mean, just mind-blowingly good.
It was a gorgeous game,
and also a good game. And then, so they announced the sequel, and the sequel's called Ghost of Yotei, where you're playing a female protagonist by the name of Atsu. And so I was immediately not happy, and there's going to be a lot of people that would say, including my son, that you're just not happy because you're playing as a girl. And literally that had nothing to do with it. And for the record, some of my favorite games that kept me in gaming when I was about to split off from it back in the day were the original Tomb Raider games, which I loved. But that's not it at all. My problem with it when they first announced it is that I wanted to continue Jin Sakai's story.
That was my same issue as well.
And my son's argument was there really wasn't much of his story left to tell.
That is incorrect. They literally set up the sequel in the end of the game.
Yes, and that was my contention. But
yes, so they did wrap up his story arc for the first one, but they 100% set up exactly where the sequel would start and what the point would be.
And not to mention the point, if you know the history, there were multiple attempts by the Mongols to invade mainland Japan.
Yeah, they weren't known for being pushovers.
Yeah, the problem was at the end that Tokyo, the shogunates finally decided to give support to Tsushima, and that basically ended those invasions. But I digress. So Ghost of Yotei is announced, and we've got this new character, and I wasn't excited about it. Alex came in, though, and he goes, hey, man, you should watch the State of Play video because they do a big 20-minute blowout on Ghost of Yotei, which I did. In fact, I sat and watched it with him. And by the end of it, I was sold. I'm not saying I'd forgot about Jin Sakai and everything that I'd done, but the leaps and bounds that they made in a game that was already beautiful and already wonderful to play. The stuff that they showed gameplay, they showed the scenery and the environments and it just mind-blowingly good.
See, I never doubted that the game would be incredible. I just want justice for Jin. That's my only issue. I'm sure it's going to be an incredible game. It looks amazing.
Yeah. Dude, even if they had announced, hey, we're doing this Ghost of Tsushima sequel where Jin's he's gotten older and he's traveling through the different villages and he meets these storytellers and they're like, let me tell you of a time of high adventure in the immortal words of Conan. And you basically flash back and you're playing through these, which you can already do in the actual regular game with the legend storytellers guys. But still, I thought that would have been a great game as well. But anyway, that led me to start really researching where we are on people talking about, and we're kind of behind the power curve on this show because a lot of the other podcasts and channels have started putting out their game of the year lists. So I took about 2.5 hours.
But we're only halfway through. That's the thing, is it still seems a bit early. Like usually you'd see that in like September.
it's going to get earlier every year. It's life. But so we have, let me hold on just a second. And we'll just go through these.
And we can definitely,
But,
once it gets later in the year, we can put together our own as well. But
yeah. And I've compiled the projected nominees, and I basically did in my own aggregate off of like 10 or 11 different channels of all their nominees. And the front runners, this is an aggregate of the front runners. And we'll just go through them as we go. But the first one is Blueprints, which I have not played. I don't know if you have played it.
I have never even heard of this game.
So it is a puzzle game. And apparently,
I do like a good puzzle game.
Apparently, it is super difficult. And it is also an indie game. So technically, it could already be nominated for Indie Game of the Year. The problem with it is that it's hard. And this is where I think it's going to lose votes.
I don't know, man, because I mean, Dark Souls has won, Dark Souls, Elden Ring, those are hard. I don't think the fact that it's hard will get in the way so much as the fact that it looks like this.
Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of the scuttlebutt on this one. The front runner is, of course, Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Now there's a lot of stink on this game being a nominee for a couple of different reasons. One of them is technically it's an indie game, but there's people out there, and a lot out of those 10 or 11 channels that I watched, there was about 4 of them that brought up this point that it is so popular. Does it transcend the fact that it's an indie game?
Yeah, I mean,
and become a AAA publisher.
There's no reason that an indie game shouldn't be eligible to win Game of the Year. If it's an amazing game, I don't know why that should hurt its chances. That just speaks even more highly of it if it's able to overcome the fact, its limited resources and become so good. And this is an incredible game.
Yeah, and you and my son have both played it to completion. I have not. I can, I've played a couple hours of it, and I can tell you it's one of my favorite like RPG openings and combat mechanics I've ever seen.
And it's got a fantastic story, fantastic art style. The way that it tells the story is done really well and really intentionally. It's masterfully crafted on every front.
Yeah. And obviously it'll get the nominee. It'll be a nominee for Game of the Year, and it'll be a nominee for RPG of the Year. But one of the other stinks is the other indie companies that have games don't want it to be nominated for Indie Game of the Year.
Man,
how interesting is that, right?
I would not be upset if it won both.
Yeah, and so I mean it's up there. And I'm kind of bringing out games right now that are actually out as much as I can. And we'll get to the dark horses and possibles later. But the other game that's going to be up there is this game, which you've also got to spend time with this one. I'm still in the first one.
Still working through this one myself, but.
Jobo, which game? Oh, no.
He's talking about Clair Obscur.
That's my son. Yeah, he's talking about Clair Obscur. Yeah. So, yeah. He's obviously excited about that one, but Death Stranding 2's up there, and there's going to, I really wish we could I'm not saying get rid of the people that constantly are the walking simulator people. They're the ones that do this game the most injustice. And 99% of those people have never played either one of the games.
Well, and here's the thing that drives me crazy about that, right? Is people will say, it's a walking simulator, right? And that'll be their thing. That'll be the way they dismiss it.
Doesn't it make your blood boil, dude? I mean, at this
it does.
point,
So it's as you and I have told people over drinks, like our own friends, we're like, no, it's not. Like that's not the way it is.
No,
there's so much more to it than that. But even so, it's like looking at Gran Turismo and being like, well, that's just a driving simulator. Yeah, that's the point, dude. That's the point. Is that it's a driving simulator. So you know what? Yeah. If you don't want to play a driving simulator, you don't play Gran Turismo. Okay, if you think it's a walking simulator, you don't want to play a walking simulator, fine. Don't play Death Stranding. Leave it be. However,
Yeah.
if you do want to get into Death Stranding, heed my words, it's not a walking simulator. We have talked about this so
No.
many times. While walking is obviously the key way of getting from one point to another in that, it's the same way, like I said, of calling something like calling Gran Turismo a driving simulator or something like that. It's just like that is a means to an end in the game. There's so much more between that. There's so much more when it comes to turning traversal into a chess match against you and the environment. And in Death Stranding, like the first one, it's you versus the environment, and a couple of variables can happen along the way, whether it's weather and this and that can change. In Death Stranding 2, it's you versus an environment that is fighting back against you while you do it. And that is only one aspect of the game. Then there's the whole thing about connecting one area to another, and then the options that opens up for more traversal, more deliveries. It's so much more. And so, yes, it is something. Yeah, it boils my blood to hear these people say it's a walking simulator. And so it's like, okay, then just don't play it. Then just don't play it. That's fine.
Yeah, and it's more, to me, it's more of a puzzle strategy simulator than it is a walking simulator. But
Absolutely. That's what it's so many things. It's so many things.
Now here's a game that's going to get, and I think it should be nominated, but I don't think it should win Game of the Year. But I think it's going to get screwed regardless because it came out 2 weeks shy of being considered for the 2024 Game of the Year awards, which is Indiana Jones and the Great Circle.
And I will say this one was a great surprise to me.
Yes.
Even when go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry. I was going to say much like job interviews, you never want to be the first interview. Yeah. And much like game releases, you don't want to be the first game out of the gate during a year.
Well, I remember whenever they first did a reveal of this game, and it might have been at a Game Awards where they were giving away things like Game of the Year and this and that. But I remember when it was whatever show it was, whatever Keeley it was that we were getting. Yeah. It was announced, and I remember seeing it. It was like, okay, a first-person Indiana Jones game. It didn't feel like the fit.
That part pissed me off. Yeah,
it didn't feel like the fit. And Grant, I prefer third-person games. And whenever it comes to like action adventure stuff like that, for like a standard shooter, okay, yeah, that makes sense, first-person perspective. But I was like, okay, Indiana Jones just didn't seem like the thing for a first-person perspective. And I was just like, I don't know. I don't know as if we've ever really had a great Indiana Jones game before. I've certainly never played one before this one. All the attempts that they've had in the past. When this came out, though, I had to eat my words on it. Everything about. I loved this game. Yeah.
And you've made it a lot farther than I have. I'm on the whatever the map is. I think I'm in Egypt right now, but yeah, and we can't say enough about what's the guy's
Troy
name?
Baker.
Troy Baker. I forgot it was Troy Baker. There were times when I was like, this is Harrison Ford.
Yeah, you 100% forget it.
And I don't know if it's psychosemantics because they used Harrison Ford's likeness, of course.
Well, it's not,
so
because you don't see him.
Telling me that. Right. And I don't know. And I will say this, one thing that's cool about the game is it does slide into third person when you're like doing like cinematic style events, when you're swinging on the whip or doing stuff like that. But
yeah, so you still get those big movie moments.
But he nailed
so good.
Not Harrison Ford. He nailed Indiana Jones' dry wit. He nailed a lot of different aspects of the way Harrison Ford portrayed this character.
Even just the way that he will, like, noises he'll just be like, oh, like grunts. Yeah. Everything. He just nailed it, dude. Like, if Harrison Ford, like, never, I mean, obviously he's not doing another Indiana Jones or whatever. Like, we can't have them do more Indiana Jones movies, especially after the atrocities that have been the last couple attempts. But this game was phenomenal, and as long as Troy Baker's around, we can get that same feeling that we got from the original trilogy of Indiana Jones movies. They nailed this, and also the story itself. The story itself had that same Indiana Jones feel that the original trilogy did, where they take a thing and there's this truth around it, and then they build this whole mythos around it that just makes it feel so grounded, so real, and you get so invested in it in a way that, again, you did not in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and the most recent one and all that stuff. They nailed the vibe that we wanted in all the follow-ups. They 100% nailed it. I could not sing this thing's praises more highly, and they are doing a DLC for it as well. They're doing an entire DLC thing coming up for where it'll be this whole other. It's a continuation of the story, but it will be more of it. They're doing more, so I really hope that game gets sequels because it was phenomenal.
Yeah, and I can't wait for the DLC. Although part of me still wants them to go make the DLC from the other movies, because we did get that opening from Raiders of the Lost Ark. I wish they'd redo the openings from the other movies.
Did you ever see in the Vatican did you ever come across this backpack where you actually saw photos from the original trilogy?
No.
So at the Vatican, there's actually a tent. So there's a tent that you can go into, and there'll be a backpack, and it'll have these images, and you'll see that they've been following you since the original trilogy, and it has photographs, and he summarizes some of their adventures from Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Last Crusade, and all that is awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
I really hope, and don't spoil this for me if it's already in this game, but I really hope they get John Rhys Davies to replace his role as Sulla and come back. And I think that would be cool too, because and even what's her name? Karen, what's her name? I always forget her name, from Raiders of the Lost Ark, or some of the other people from the other Ilsa from Last Crusade. I think that'd be a good call. And maybe do some AI for Sean Connery. That would be cool too. But moving on, I don't think that game's going to win it. I think it came out too soon in the year and people have already forgotten. But one that came out kind of just a couple months ago, 3 months ago or so, this is another game that's being considered in the pot for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, which to me, this one's not going to win it because it's too niche.
This is one I remember whenever the first one. I have not played either of them, so I don't. I don't know.
The first one's excellent.
I've heard the first one was great, and I remember when it came out, and the whole thing was it was going to be very, very of the time. Like the whole thing was they wanted to make it as authentic as they possibly could. They wanted everything to scream authenticity, and I remember that it being very, very niche as a result of that. And then I remember that it just, I read articles and saw some videos about it. And then all of a sudden when it released, I thought it was just going to be kind of come and gone. And it blew up and it became a huge thing, especially amongst streamers. And then it got them to do this one where they got a way bigger budget and got to do way more things. And I've heard so many great things about this. So I've played neither game, but I am excited too. I've heard good things.
Yeah. And the first one, so you basically had, swords and shields, and it's medieval with no magic and this is a historical story. And the block and parry on it is first person and realistic. So, it's one of those things where you can take one hit the wrong way with your shield down and you're done. So, again, I think Claire Expedition's Obscura is going to run away with it. But, this segment for me is more about the ones that are in the pot for nominations. And this is one that's pretty much a consensus from everybody. The next one, and again, I don't think this is going to win it because it's starting to reach a point now where people still think World is better than this one.
Well, I love this game. I think it's phenomenal, but it's not the kind of game that wins Game of the Year. Because while the game itself is phenomenal, and granted, whenever we get on there and we play this, I love it. We got to do that again soon. By the way, we got to get some of the new monsters that they've got on there. But the story doesn't exist. Oh
my god,
there are like they say, oh, we spent more time. We focused on this. No, you didn't. There are events. There's
No, you didn't.
There's events that happened, that have subtitles under them as they play. That's not a story. That's whatever. So go ahead.
I was gonna say Monster Hunter is the only game where I will skip through dialogue.
Same. Yeah.
Like,
At first I was really excited that they were like, they
Yeah.
said they focused on the game. So I was really giving it the first shot. And then I was like, nope, I'm skipping through this. Screw
It's
this.
like I
Screw
don't
this
give
guy.
a shit, man. Just
Yep.
give me a big ass sword and let me hunt a monster.
Yeah.
To me,
So-
that's all it is.
Absolutely one of the best times I've had playing a game this year,
Yeah.
but this is not going to win game of the year.
No, and
Just because it just doesn't have the total package. It's got
The
everything
hero
that you need to have fun with your friends, but it's not a thing where it has this gameplay loop that's addictive if you love it, and I do love it. Again, this
I do
is
too.
nothing against this game whatsoever.
we are
adore
not
this game.
underselling this, man.
Yeah.
We want people to play this because it is more fun than you can have with 3 other buddies.
Yeah.
On a game sesh night, you'll never have more fun. But
it just doesn't have
this-
that gripping narrative.
yeah,
It's just
And
not the
it's-
kind of game that wins.
and it's one thing when we say you have to wrap your mind around Death Stranding stories or Metal Gear stories because they're crazy, and this story is
Nothing.
like it's disjointed. It's like there's 17 people telling 17 versions of 17 different stories. So anyway,
You're like, okay,
I
this
don't-
monster's on fire now. Okay, fine, whatever.
To me, it belongs more in the action game category even than the RPG category. But here we are.
Yeah. Like, I mean,
It's
'cause
weird.
Even you're not even really leveling up your own abilities. You're leveling up armor and things like that. Like, yeah, I agree with you. I would definitely say it's more of action game than it's an action game with RPG elements more than it is an RPG
Yeah.
with action elements.
Yeah, and then another one on the supposed nominee list is Split Fiction, which this is from the makers of It Takes Two, which won Game of the Year
And
is
A
an
Way
indie
Out.
game. And A Way Out, yeah. But the problem that a lot of people are having with this one is they've created their own monster for not winning because all their games revolve around 2 people, and you have to do both people to get through it, and they don't want to give the same type of game of the year. So a lot of people think this one doesn't have a shot because of that very reason.
You have to have a second actual person. There is no like NPC partner or anything like that. You have to have 2 people. But this guy, Faraz, I can't remember his first name. His last name is Faraz, but I love this guy. The director, I love him. He's the guy that always drops F-bombs at the Game Awards. The French guy that always drops the F-bomb at the Game Awards, that's the guy that made this game. I love him to death. I think he's great. I like what they do with these games. I just wish they would do something where you could play through them on your own. And this guy's really creative. He's super creative. So I wish that they would do something along the lines of like A Way Out that's like a single player. I don't know. I would love to see if he could focus his attentions towards something that is, if not exclusively single player, at least something that can be played single player or multiplayer, something like that. But I love the guy, love the games. Haven't played this one. Look forward to playing it. But again, you got to have 2 people at the same time, at the same place to do it. So I haven't gotten a chance to play that either. And yeah, I don't believe that it'll be the one that that wins. Oh, System of War is here. Good to see a system. Kind of like Little
Oh, what's
Nightmares,
up,
he
man?
says.
Yeah, so another indie title. And we got access to both of those, I think, right now on PS Plus and on Game Pass. So Little Nightmares 1 and 2. But this next game I also have not played, but I have it added to my play later library on Game Pass. And that is The Altar.
I can already hear some media talk around this one.
So I just want to say, and I've found myself and this is not the same thing, but sort of is, as I've gotten older, when I make a decision about something or I do something just in my daily life, I'll go, there's a lot of times and more often now where I'll go, man, 10 years ago, I wouldn't have done that. Or 5 years ago or 30 years ago, I wouldn't have done that. And this is a game where basically you're creating clones of yourself in order to survive whatever the environment is. But the clones take on different aspects of your personality and character. Maybe a side that never actually comes out is what the clone gets created as. So the premise of it, and again, I don't know enough about it other than that,
Same.
But I do want to play this, man, because I think it would bring up a lot of interesting internal dilemmas. Which any game that furthers the human experience, I'm all about anyway.
I love, like, I saw some introductions. I haven't watched any playthroughs or anything like that because I don't want to be spoiled, because I do, like you said, I do want to play this game. And I don't want anything to be spoiled. But it looked fantastic from what I've seen. And you and I said the same thing about it when we looked at this. I said it gave me Moon vibes, the movie Moon.
Yeah.
And we say this about so many games. What was that Subnautica-like game that was put out by
Under the Waves?
Yeah, Under the Waves.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you have not seen Moon, go see Moon. See Moon. It's a fantastic movie. Sam Rockwell. It's stellar. It's phenomenal. You won't regret it. But watching the setup and all the stuff about this game, it gave me Moon vibes. And this is one that I want to play. I'm very excited to play.
You know, it's funny. You look at this picture right here, and even the fact that all the different versions of him have different hairdos, and they probably just did it so they could tell them apart. But even in my life, you know, if I'm being honest, there's times where I was like, man, I'm just going to grow my hair out. And that would have been that version of me, right? So it's like, it's so weird. I really think it's going to make you do one of those things where, oh my God, am I that guy? You know, kind of thing.
I'm very curious to see how they play with it.
Yeah. It'll be interesting if we both end up playing it, give or take, right around the same time, and what we decide to do. We could probably do a whole episode just on that. But anyway, it's also considered in the pot. And then that was the last one for probably definitely nominated. The next ones are dark horses that aren't necessarily even released yet, that people think are going to make the pot as far as nominees. And the first one, which started this whole shebang, is this one. And we've already talked about it a little bit, so I'm just going to say this. If it's even remotely close to as good, which I think it will be, if not better, than Ghost of Tsushima, then it definitely deserves to be in the conversation. It's hard to talk about a game that hasn't been released yet. But again, if it is remotely close, it deserves. Ghost of Tsushima should have been in the conversation.
Yeah. And again, I will always carry this chip on my shoulder. #Justice for Jen. I will always be upset that they set up the sequel and then they didn't give it to us. However, all that said, I have zero doubts that this game will be phenomenal. No doubts whatsoever.
Next up, and I can't even believe I'm putting this up here, but I have to because it was part of the story, is god dang, I just want to cuss anytime a Nintendo game, and when I say a Nintendo game, I mean of Nintendo's proprietary IPs, gets considered for Game of the Year, other than Zelda. I get the pull for Zelda, and the developers put shit tons of work into it. They come up with phenomenal stories that people love. I don't, but I know people do. But when we're talking about giving Game of the Year to a freaking platformer with Donkey Kong or Mario, it feels like an insult to developers like the people that develop Clair Obscur or any of these gigantic, multi-layered, super complex stories. And this, I know you're laughing, but I am pissed anytime. I don't even want to. Yeah, you're right, man. You're absolutely right.
Okay,
there are people out there in this world that still say that older people shouldn't game, which is stupid because it's more interacting with the mind than sitting around watching TV and movies. But this is a freaking kids game, dude. And I'm not saying I wouldn't like it. I'm not saying that. If I just need 10 minutes on the subway or something to play, yeah, sure. Let's play Donkey Kong Bonanza. Game of the Year? Kiss my ass. You're not getting it.
So
okay, go ahead. I'm done. I'm sorry. You actually just got my very first Fuel Pod version of my rant on the Fuel Pod when I go. It's like that. So this is awful.
So I'm not willing to go that far yet. We'll see how it is. Nintendo is very good at finding ways to capitalize on the new things that their systems can do, or the new capabilities that their systems can handle. yeah, System says game looks fun, but he wouldn't put it up there with game of the year. And granted, from what I've seen, I wouldn't say game of the year yet, but I haven't played it, so I don't know. Because one thing that Nintendo is very good at is they are really good about designing games around their systems capabilities, or the new um, the the new enhanced capabilities of their systems. And one example of that was obviously Breath of the Wild when that came out, and then Tears of the Kingdom when that came out. These were phenomenal games, and obviously those have a different look and a different vibe. I totally understand that, but Nintendo's just has a track record of killing these kinds of things. Like, I'm knocking it out of the park. So I don't expect it will be on my game of the year, but I do expect that it'll actually be really well done and a really interesting game. I'm hearing good things about it so far. Obviously, right now, my plate is full. My cup runneth over. I have a lot of things going on, a lot of things to play, a lot of things to catch up on. And it's $80. And this is one game where if it was $60,
Donkey Kong.
yeah, if it was $60 or $70 or something like that, I would probably have bought it. But this is one where I'm like, $80? Nah, I'll wait. I'll wait on that. So I'm not militantly against its possibility of consideration for game of the year, just because I know that Nintendo can put together a really great game. Yes, System, it is $80. It is unreal. But they do have just a really good track record of putting together good games. So I'm not willing to shut it down offhand.
I feel like System and me right now are right here. We're right here.
So I'm not willing to put it. I'm not willing to diss it just out of hand, but I don't expect that it will be on my personal list whenever we get to that of Game of the Year, which we still have months before we get to our games of the years, because there's games that still haven't released yet.
Right. So next one, Dark Horse category.
It ain't going on sale, System. Unfortunately, Nintendo doesn't do that.
Hades 2. So I don't know if you played the first one. I did.
I did.
It was obviously it was a roguelike where you just kept going in and getting your ass handed to you and then getting better and coming back.
I just want to say, sorry, System. I read his comment out of the corner of my eye where he said, wait for it to go on sale. And I was like, it ain't going on sale. Then I realized the second half of his comment was that they never go on sale.
So I really think this dev house, and I don't know the dev house right off the top of my head. I forgot to get it, but I really think they're going to up the ante on this one. The first one was legit, man. I mean, especially for an isometric, kind of top-down Diablo style view. It was excellent. The story was good. I don't know what the story is supposed to be on this one, but I mean, it'll be up there. So,
Sister or something like that. Yeah.
The next one.
Well, I was going to say this is about one thing.
Oh, go ahead.
Speaking of that game, the roguelikes. That's one thing where the first Hades game, was phenomenal. It had this really interesting style, this really cool take on the underworld, where it was kind of like it was all things. It was kind of like the Continental in John Wick, where it was sort of this like interesting thing where there's the bar where there's really interesting characters hanging out, and then there's interesting places for the I don't know. It was just a really cool vibe that they did with it. I don't know. I and as great as it was, I just can't. The roguelike thing, it just doesn't grip me as much. Like, I'll play through it for a while, but then it's just, I mean, eventually you will die, and that is the point: is that you are going to die. You'll get a little bit something. You can invest in here, invest in that, so that maybe you can get a little bit further the next time. And even though they do change it up, even though it does change every time you go into it, it just got to like it just grinds on me. I just can't do it. Great game, nothing against them. That's one of those things I just can't get behind. That loop, that gameplay loop, it just loses it for me after a while.
Yeah, and I hate entering a game where I lose all my stuff every time and I have to redo it. So that being said, the game was good. I enjoyed parts of it, but like you, it wore thin. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this other Dark Horse Nintendo game out of the way, just because, my God. So we got Metroid Prime 4, and I will give a small, and I mean small, nod to this game because they tend to really go after it when they come out with Metroid games. And one of my favorite games of all time is Metroid 2 on the Super NES, which I thought was excellent, and I thought paved the way for a lot of great games. I'm talking about Castlevania and some of the other ones in that genre back in the day. But yeah, so this one is also being mentioned as a possible if it comes out and it hits the ground running. I'm assuming this is on Switch too.
Yes.
But I know there's a lot of people looking for it, so I will not trash this game at all. Metroid is a great story. It's got a great franchise, and I'm all about it.
I
don't know
believe
if you
this
have
is the
anything
one
to
that
say
they
on
had
this.
to reboot like twice, like start
Yeah.
from scratch. So props to them though. That's another thing that Nintendo will do. They will not put a game out until they are happy with it. If it's gonna be one of their first party games, they will not put it out until they are happy with it. That is something you got to give Nintendo credit for there at least.
And
Is
I
that
will
they
always
never
give,
send out a broken
especially.
game.
Yeah, I actually read the article on this, and you're right. They went through basically the game equivalent of rewrites getting this one right. So, I mean, it's a possibility to be up there. So that's a good one. But my favorite one in the dark horse category that seems to be on a lot of people's lists, and I know it's not Hideo Kojima anymore. I know that, but it's basically a direct remake of Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater.
It seems
I don't.
from everything they've shown us so far, it seems very much like shot for shot. Like when it
Yeah,
comes to cinematics and stuff.
yeah, I watched like a 30-minute gameplay preview, and I was like, God, I remember that level. God, I remember that spot. And I think this is going to catch some hell because it's a remake or a remaster or whatever you want to call it. But I still think it should be considering the way it looks right now. It looks great.
Well, and this is, even though it is not Kojima, I will say it does do a very Kojima thing, and that is the Delta. So it's Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. So whenever you see it on some sites or devices or whatever, maybe it doesn't have the ability to render whatever symbol it is, it can't show Delta, so it just shows a square or something like that. So just to make it as difficult as possible, right on brand for what Kojima would have wanted.
So I think last but not least, we still have, like you mentioned at the very beginning of this segment, we still have roughly 6 months of this year to go.
Yes.
Yeah.
So whenever we compile our own personal lists of our contenders, it's going to be far later in the year.
So what I wanted to do was to stir controversy amongst ourselves and our viewers and talk about some of the big games that could come out that could really throw this whole thing into a, I don't know what you call it, just a mess, a soupy mess of games. But the first one is
I don't know if I like it when you put it that way.
The first one is this one, Wu Chang Fallen Feathers. Me and Alex, my son again, we have watched quite a bit of content on this game. It's in the vein of Wu Long and Kazan, the first Berserker, and Black Myth Wukong. Female protagonist with a crazy set of skills. Kind of Souls-like in as far as difficulty level and the way the boss fights work out. But I think it's going to be looked at, man. I really do. I think it'll maybe take votes away from a game that we already mentioned that could possibly end up in Game of the Year. So
yeah, this is one that I haven't seen a whole lot of. I've seen a little bit here and there. It always looks really impressive anytime that I see it. But every time I see this in particular, where I see the logo with the sort of the ink brush writing, I always think Black Myth Wukong. That's what, and then I'm like, oh wait, no, it's something else. So that is, I think that might be a struggle that they have to work through. But everything that I've seen so far, this game looks incredible.
Yeah, and the crazy part too is, for you and I, we get this game for free on July 25th on Game Pass. So it's a day one Game Pass release. So I'm looking forward to at least trying it out. I'm not a gigantic big Soulsborne player, but
I'm not either.
But from an art direction standpoint, I'd like to at least see it.
I am not a digital masochist. Like I can understand a lot. Like I enjoy the artwork and the art style and a lot of the gameplay mechanics, but I do not derive pleasure from getting my ass handed to me 95 times before finally getting that last strike in and then being like, okay, I got it. Okay, now I'm going to go across the canyon and I'm going to do that again with somebody else. Like that loop does not appeal to me.
Well, you know, part of it is, man, I get out of bed every day, I go to work, I can get my ass kicked at work.
Yeah.
I want to be like some kind of rock star hero warrior guy when I'm playing, and it's not gonna happen with
Except
this
at
game.
work, you never fail the boss.
It's true.
You're always going to lose to it.
Yeah,
you're the one that falls.
And then next up, another game that could throw some irons into the fire from one of my favorite developers, Oblivion, is Outer Worlds 2. Outer Worlds 1 was great. The knock on it was that it was too short, even though it had tons of DLC.
Well, and it was also priced cheaper as a result of it being short. And they even said whenever they released it that it was short. They let people know, hey, it's priced this way because it's shorter, and basically told you that it was essentially a proof of concept. They're like, this is what we've been working on. We think this is cool. What do you think?
Yeah.
And turned out it was a resounding, we think it's cool too, from the gaming community.
Well, you know, it's really sad when a lot of people consider the best Fallout game Vegas, which is the only non-Bethesda Fallout game. So, which is insane by itself.
Still spoken of with reverence.
Yeah. So anyway, looking forward to seeing what this looks like.
I'm very much looking forward to that one.
Could definitely upset the apple cart. We have a few more that could upset the apple cart. One is Mafia: The Old Country, and I don't know if you played any of the old Mafia games. I played the first one extensively when it first came out. I think on the 360, and I enjoyed the 30s. This one's going even further back. I mean, we're going back to, you know, Don Vito Corleone as a child, basically era of character. So this one takes place in Italy, basically at the very beginnings of the family. Do I think this has Game of the Year potential? No. Do I think that the art style, the direction, the graphics, all that stuff could win awards? Absolutely, man. It looks good.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that we don't have to fight on this one, and that you agree with me, because I'm like, this is a threat to no one on Game of the Year. I did enjoy the Mafia games. They were always, I thought Mafia would be one of those that eventually found its stride, and it never did. Even Mafia 3, the one that was like more modern times, was like 70s era. And you know, your main character was like the Vietnam vet and all that stuff. Even Mafia 3, I thought that was going to be the one where it was going to click and it was all going to work, and it didn't. So it's always been a good idea. It's always been an entertaining story, but they've never been great games. They've always been cult classics. You enjoy it for what they are, but it's not one of those things that sucks you in. And that seems to be everybody's first impressions right now of Mafia: The Old Country, is that it's more like that. And not only that, it's also looking like it's going to be incredibly short as far as the narrative is concerned. So it'll be cool. I'm glad that the Mafia franchise is not dead. I'm glad that it's not sleeping with the fishes or something, right? But I'm glad that we are still getting it, and I still hold out hope that even though it's not this one, it's not going to be this one. Maybe one day down the line they'll come out with one that everything finally clicks together, clicks into place, and it nails everything that it's trying to do.
So you heard it here, folks. Mason fitted this game for concrete shoes. Anyway, I've always looked at it. And of course, anytime you're talking about an open world game, GTA is always going to come up. And people that know me know I've always equated
open world games, any game that releases in 2026. Like,
right. But I always called these games GTA Mafia. But they weren't as good as GTA. And the only thing that even fits that GTA build for me is Assassin's Creed Black Flag. I always called it, hey, man, for people that hadn't played it, I'm like, dude, this is literally GTA Pirate.
The best Assassin's Creed game so far.
Yeah. So another game that I'm super interested in, it's on the list to come out this year, has a really unique mechanic and a background where it's this sort of post-apocalyptic world where yes, there's guns and modern stuff, robots and all that bit, but you still have, obviously, you see here from the picture, some type of light sword and a magic thing, and you have a drone, which is weird. To me, it's just a weird looking game that has potential. So, but anyway, it's coming out this year. I
That is
don't
one
know
that
if it's
interests me
going
as
to be.
well.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be a huge threat, but dude, you never know. We could get right to November and something just drop that we just didn't even see. And
Yeah,
sometimes
this
that's the way
this
it
one
goes.
seems really interesting. I'm looking forward to this one. Everything I've seen about it has me intrigued. It hasn't generated a
Yeah.
whole lot of buzz, but I'm intrigued. Also, this is a prime example of why I don't do marketing anymore, because whenever you said it's super post-apocalyptic, like what happened in my brain was super post-apocalyptic expialidocious, and
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to be a good tagline for this game. But I am excited for it.
Yeah. And I
But that
I
will be
love
the name. Whenever I make a video, that will be the name of the video. Will be super post-apocalyptic expialidocious.
that's exactly what it should be. And the other piece is they've never said post-apocalyptic, and I think that's smart in the marketing that they have done, which has been minimal at best. It's been hard pressed to find gameplay on this, but it is out there.
Yeah, so
And
that's
what
the
I,
thing is like, you see like little bitty clips and things here and there. That's why
yeah,
I'm interested in it and not like super stoked about it, because yeah, like you said,
yeah.
we barely gotten to see anything about it.
And maybe that's by design. Maybe they're like, look, we're about to drop a bombshell on this Joker.
I hope so.
And maybe that's awesome. Next one, much in the vein of Metal Gear Solid. Before it is, and I don't think it'll get a look because again, it's a remake, but there's a lot of people that love this game, man.
I'm looking forward to doing some more co-op with this one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. Like, I don't think Rob's played one, or maybe he has, or I thought he hadn't. But
We
I'm
got to
looking
fix
forward
that
to
then.
yeah, and getting my kids, on it, and because dude, the story on this was legit, and the multiplayer, the co-op was legit.
And it's Marcus Phoenix. That's one of the
Yeah.
things. Like, there's some games where, as they go on, as the story progresses, as you move forward, you can get away with changing out the main character, where maybe the main character's not the driving force behind the story. Maybe it's more about the history or the location. So there's some games where you can get away with swapping out the main character.
Yeah.
And Gears has tried to do that. Even whenever it's like, oh, it's Marcus Phoenix's son or this or that, it doesn't work if it's not Marcus Phoenix. It's got to be Marcus Phoenix, and it's got to be Dom.
Dude, it's no different than animals and kids, man. Once they imprint, that's it. And Marcus Phoenix imprinted on us. And sadly enough, he did it in a way that was actually tragic. And I'm not going to spoil the game for the new generation, but there's kind of a tearjerker moment in this game. And it sucks. And you're going to catch it right in the feels when it happens. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a decent release, and obviously comes out next month.
Here's
next up,
the source of many, many, many of our views.
Next up, our favorite game developer. This game has not come out yet, obviously, but I think you can't have Game of the Year as a conversation without mentioning the release of this game. I really feel like you can't, because this game is either going to nail it and knock the ball completely out of the park, or it is going to tank.
Now, and we'll talk about that, because whenever we get to Superman, we get into our spoilerific view of Superman. We'll talk about flops and blockbusters and things like that, because there's some comments that I definitely want to address from our video. But I don't think it's going to tank. I think it's going to do just fine.
I don't either.
I think it'll do just fine. Now, I will say it's probably not going to win Game of the Year. Now, I will. For whenever we do our own personal Game of the Year, we are not a journalistic enterprise here. I will tell you right now, I can put an action game on my list of Game of the Year contenders, because as long as I just have fun with it, that's what I really care about. It doesn't need to have a narrative that's going to bring you to tears and you're not going to be
Right.
able to get over it for a weekend after you play it or anything like that. So I've got no problem with big dumb fun, but I am really looking forward to Borderlands 4. I think that they've done a lot of really great improvements from what we've seen. We know that they're focusing a lot more on the story. And so while I really doubt that it really hits the radar for most places game of the year, I am willing to bet that it ends up on the radar for my personal game, my half of Hardcore Casual, my personal list of games of the year. This is a likely contender.
And listen, I don't know if this was intended or not, and I've really never noticed it till just now, but the color scheme on this cover is identical to the original Borderlands.
I think they did a lot of nods to the
Yep.
original Borderlands.
Yeah.
To bring it back.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm looking forward to this game. I don't give a shit what anybody else says.
Very excited about it.
I just wish Pitchford would stay off of Twitter.
Come
Anyway,
talk to us,
last
Randy.
but not least,
Offer still stands.
yeah, man, and it'll be fair and balanced. But anyway, last but not least, and this is partially a joke, and it's partially not, because I actually watched quite a bit of footage on this.
I keep seeing this down here, and I've been waiting for you to bring it up because I don't know what is happening.
And it's not even being mentioned. This does not belong in this segment. Even I have to bring it up. So this is a game called. It's not out yet. It is coming out on console and PC.
Are you sure it's not out yet, or it was out in '96?
Well, that's funny you bring this up because it uses the GoldenEye graphics engine. It has a single player story and multiplayer. I did detect hints of this. But I want you to, I'm not going to put up any footage of it. I want you to look it up on your own. If anybody watches this episode, look it up on your own. It looks exactly like GoldenEye, but with modern controls. Which, if anybody played GoldenEye, you know, the weakest point of that whole game was the control scheme.
We didn't realize it whenever we played it back then, but then whenever they re-released it, everybody's like, "Oh yeah!" And then everybody was immediately like, "Gunk," and like looking down the screen, like, "What happened? What is going on? What is this?"
So this is like some kind of never-ending spy game, hence the name "Spies Never Die," and the indicator is the big circled 64 right there, to let you know it's 64-bit. Graphics, but yeah, it's got a modern story and dated graphics, but it looks fun as shit, dude. So make sure you look up something on it.
I am curious more than I am excited, but I am curious as to what in the world that is.
You're going to end up watching the trailer and you're going to go, okay, all right, I'm sort of in. Yeah, we'll see what happens. If it's $10, yeah, you'll definitely be in. But dude, that's our game of the year discussion till we have our actual one, which I'm sure will be probably in November.
Yeah,
maybe December.
Yeah, I probably November, because by then anything that everything that's going to be big, it's going to be a contender that's going to be out by then, so that they can get it can make holiday shopping and stuff like that. So
well, I think the show is December 11th, so it has to be before that.
Our show or somebody?
No, the Game of the Year award.
Oh, well, I mean, we'll still give our own Game of the Year.
Yeah.
The Hardcore Cat, the most prestigious, obviously. The Hardcore first annual Hardcore Casual Game of the Year. We'll get it squared away on our end, but yeah, we'll keep an eye on some of that. And so moving on to our closer for the evening is going to be our spoiler-rific discussion. So obviously released our spoiler-free review of Superman, which was basically me talking a lot about Superman because you had not yet gotten to see it, but now you have. So I feel like the best thing to do would first be to open the floor to you, Jay, now that you have heard all that I had to say about it. And let's see what you thought now that you have seen James Gunn's Superman. What are your initial thoughts?
So, first off, I'm trying to delete a folder that won't seem to delete. Okay, skip. So my first two comments are comments that you made when you were on the show last week and talked about there's going to be a thing that they made that's a canon change And I don't know how you're going to react to it, but I'm looking forward to talking about it. And I'm assuming that canon change. And again, I'm going to say this again, folks. This is huge spoilers. So if you're still here going, maybe they won't spoil it too much, I'm spoiling the shit out of it. So
yeah, we got
you
nothing
need to
left.
leave.
We got nothing left to talk about after this. So yeah, you can leave if you don't want to hear it.
Is the fact that the parents' message was lost in translation.
Or was incomplete.
It was, well, yeah, it was incomplete. I was trying to be nice in case anybody was still hanging on, but was incomplete, and that he only got the first part of the message, and that it took Lex in his brilliance to translate the rest of the message. And so that now we're moving forward in a world where Superman's parents not only wanted him to come to Earth and befriend us, but later rule us. So now we're in a world where that's Superman's story. How do I feel about that? I'm going to answer my own question, which is the definition of insanity, and say, I don't know how I feel about that. Because I grew up with all the old Supermans, and Superman was always, truth, justice, and the American way. And his parents sent him here. You're among them, but you're not one of them, as Brando said. And I don't feel it fits. I was okay in this story with it being the case because it sold the rest of the movie. So that was one of the things you talked about last week that really hit home when I was in the theater. The other piece was saying that when you said this is a comic book movie in every sense of the word, you were 110,000% accurate with that. Absolutely a comic book. I love how they borrowed the idea of the boys when it came to the Justice Gang, that they were under corporate sponsorship, and that's why they had to wear the matching uniforms. Well, not matching uniforms, but uniforms. And thought it was weird they're hanging out with the inside the Hall of Justice. I thought that was both cool and weird, and that they still hadn't come up with the idea that, hey, we're the Justice League. So those were 2 points you made last week that I went into the movie with. And the fact that you said that it was a comic book movie actually saved the movie for me, because that was my expectation. And that's what happened. Was it a good movie? Do I think it redeems the DCU? Yes, I do. I do very much. I love the movie. Did it have problems? It absolutely had problems. And I figured I would let you go first when it comes to that. But there were characters I loved, and characters that were unnecessary, and characters that were absolutely needed, and some that were just not needed at all. I felt like Hawk Girl was worthless in that movie. And plus, it felt like she was like part Hawk Girl, part Canary with the screaming. And I didn't like that really at all. I always have a problem when they show one of the Hawk heroes without the other one, because they're like Destiny has them bonded.
Well, I don't have a problem with that, because Destiny will bring them together. It just hasn't done that yet. Because once Destiny brings them together, we only have a limited amount of time before one of them dies.
Well,
so,
to be fair, I would have been okay if she had bit the bullet in this movie.
I gathered.
Yeah. So, and not because it's Hawk Girl, it's because she didn't do a whole lot. Mr. Terrific blew my mind.
That guy stole the movie. That guy was fantastic.
He blew my mind. His vocal delivery, his skill set,
scene stealer.
Like that whole scene with him and Lois at the beach compound, where it blew my mind that we had people walking around working every day in Hawaiian shirts and shorts and doing evil. Hey man, I'm going to hey man, you want to grab a couple bagels on the way? What are we doing? Well, we're going to be
clocking in for world domination.
Yeah, right. So
I think that was my favorite scene in the entire movie. That was him like emptying out that campground with his little drones. Like, loved that.
And he was so monotone at one point, and then they get inside the portal, and he's like, before that, his whole delivery is like, yeah, we need to get in here and take care of this, and blah 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 blah. And then he gets in there, he's like, holy shit, that's a plasma river.
Yeah, I loved his character. I thought that was great, and he was one where this is one where it's got to be just a comic booky movie, otherwise things don't work. And he's one of those characters that doesn't work in a grounded, grittier movie, like the T for terrific on his face, the fair play on the arms. It's just a hard character to sell in a gritty setting, and the setting wasn't gritty. And so he stole every scene that he was in. I thought he was the sleeper star in the whole movie. It was great. And as far as the change to Superman's origin, here's why I not only don't mind it, but I like it. So, one, this is something that they have played around with in the comics before. Every time they do a issue 1, they bring on a new writer, or they do, a different version of Superman where it's like the high flying Superman or this Superman, or they always have some different adjective and whatever. They always do different takes. And so this kind of thing is something that's been played around with in the comics before. And, so it's not like it's completely ungrounded or unfounded. And like anything, kind of like the MCU, this is a thing where we are in a world that is informed by the comics, inspired by the comics, but they still have room to do something on their own and do some changes where they can play around with some stuff. Other things are like the fact that, again, like I said, it's the comic bookiest movie I've ever seen. And one thing that is a definite in comic books is that nothing is definite in comic books. Even though in this movie they went out of their way, they said, oh, that's legitimate. The message is legitimate. They could always change it. They could always do something to retcon that, adjust it, whatever. It doesn't mean that it's got to be that way forever. But even if it does stay that way forever, I don't mind it, because they don't need to. They're not. They're a part of Superman's origins, but they don't need to be a part of the DCU and how it moves forward. And I thought the thing that I was talking about last week, I thought it did or made a really good way for them to have this sort of thing where all this time Clark Kent thought that he was this good guy because his parents told him to be a good guy. And then he realizes, or it's brought to light, that that's not what his parents told him to do. It wasn't this thing where it's like, hey, go be a protector, go do this, go do that. It was sort of rule over these idiots and, have children, have Kryptonians. And so all this time where he thought that he was a good guy because that's what his parents wanted, he then sees this and it shakes him, and he's like, well, what am I, I didn't, this is real. What's that? How, he kind of struggles with how he's supposed to deal with that. And he realizes that he's just a good guy. He is a good guy. And I love the fact that in the, whenever he's injured at the very start of the movie, he's injured, they bring him to the Fortress of Solitude. They give him the dose of the yellow sun, and they ask if they want them to play the message from his parents because it soothes him whenever he's, in these times of distress. And he says yes. And so they played the message that we hear over and over in the show from his Kryptonian parents. And then at the end, whenever it gets flipped, and at the end, he's sitting there and they say, do you want us to play the footage of your parents? And he says yes. And then the robots, Thor is explaining to the new robot, oh, this soothes him or whatever. And it plays, and it's the Kents. It's his earthly parents, the ones that really taught him morals and his moral compass. I thought that was great. So I liked it just because it gave a chance for him to realize that he's not a good guy because he was told to be a good guy. He's a good guy because he's just a good guy.
Well, yeah, and his Smallville, Paul Kent delivered probably what's one of the most poignant lines in the whole film when he was like, and I'm paraphrasing, when he said, nobody can tell you who you are, Clark. We as parents give you the tools and we hope you'll be good, but you have to decide to be good. So basically telling him the same thing, that it doesn't matter what they told you in the message. The part that you needed to hear, you got, and it, it translated over to who you are. But yeah, dude, that part of it, I love. I wasn't even talking about, I didn't like the idea that they changed it from that standpoint. I was sort of talking about it's hard to take a story that's that old and that set and basically flip it on its tail. Do I think it improved this movie? Yeah, I do, man. And whatever story James Gunn wants to tell after this. But the funny thing to me in this whole movie, Superman was almost the most least relevant person in this whole movie. You already brought up Mr. Terrific, and I'm not saying he wasn't important or he wasn't great, dude. What's his name? David is it Cornsweet?
Cornsweet, yeah, David Cornsweet
did an excellent job. And there were scenes in it, and he blew it out of the water. But I think what he did the most was accentuating all the other characters, including the bad ones. And
he was your tour guide.
I want to talk about Lex on a completely separate thing. So I'm getting that out of there. But Lois, when
completely separate tangent, not a completely separate show. We'll get to Lex.
Lex will still be on this show. Lois, I thought Rachel Brosnahan did a great job.
Killed it
as Lois. I mean, she nailed it. I'm like in a Margot Kidder kind of way, but even better than Margot Kidder. I thought she was good at being in his face, even though she's basically standing in front of an immortal. And
I also really like the fact that she would provide pushback, but she was never trying to get the upper hand on him or anything like that. She was just telling him, like, this is the same thing that anybody else is going to ask you. Like, if you gave an interview to anybody else, they're going to be even harder on you than I am right now. But these are questions that you need to answer. And, or you shouldn't say that to me, or this is off the right. I thought, like, it was never this thing where it was trying to, be this thing where she was this girl boss standing up to Superman. Like, no, she was Superman's significant other. They saw each other as equals, as people, and she would give him tough love when he needed it. And then in times like this, where he was kind of getting where a lot of these questions he had never thought of himself. And granted, I understood his stance. Like, whenever he got upset about whenever she was drilling on him about this intervention that he did, this international intervention that he committed, in his head, he's like, well, people were going to die. What else was I supposed to do? I'm the only one that could have done anything about it. And I prevented people from dying. And I'm with him on that. Right. But then you also have her side of it where it's like, yeah, but there's this whole other aspect of it that you got to consider.
Yeah. And it went unsaid, but you could tell in Lois's head, she was also like, sometimes people die, man. We have processes that we follow. And the other piece of that I think is great is that for the first time ever, they showed a DC superhero tragically flawed. I've said it before that the reason I like Marvel over DC is that Marvel portrays flawed heroes, whereas DC shows these perfect people. But, in this movie, Superman was tragically flawed. Guy Gardner was ridiculously flawed.
Loves him too.
Hawkgirl was lazy. I don't know if you got the undertones on that, but she was lazy.
She was Gen Z.
Mr. Terrific was a condescending prick, but he knew what needed to be done and how it needed to be done.
Well, his whole thing was also he didn't care about people.
Right.
He cared about the mission. He cared about getting things done.
Math.
And he didn't really care about people.
Yeah, it was the cold hard math for him. And the other supporting characters, like I felt like Perry White was a non-issue in the whole movie. I couldn't believe Wendell Pierce signed up for such a small role.
Well, it's because it's not going to be a small role. It's going to build. It's going to be a central part as we expand this thing. It's just introducing him.
Yeah, and then Jimmy Olsen was, the small parts that he had that were intrinsically him were good. And I like how they introduced a lot of people in the Superman universe. We got Cat Grant and we got Eve Tessmacher, even though they never called her Mrs. Tessmacher, which was weird for me. But, next I think we have to move on to talk about Lex, because there's another piece of Superman's flawed humanity that I want to get into, but I can't do it without us getting to Lex Luthor. So this might have been, and this is, you got to understand how hard it is for me to say this. This might have been the best Lex Luthor I've ever seen. And there was at one point where I looked at, because I went to see it with Rob, that I looked over and said, I want him Joffrey dead right now.
I saw one
Like
reviewer
right now. I wanted him dead right now. And
This
those
is
are
the
always
thing.
my favorite villains. But go
There
ahead,
was
sorry.
no. I was just gonna say, because this is a thing where, and there's a couple of these instances where I'm just like, it blew my mind that some people would have these complaints, and we'll get to some of the others as well. But one of the things, there was a content creator on YouTube that I watched that was giving a review, and he thought the movie was absolutely great, except he hated Lex Luthor to such an extent that it ruined the movie for him. And I'm like, that's the point. You're supposed to hate Lex Luthor. Like, that's the idea. That's the whole thing. That's why he does this.
That's the whole idea, buddy.
So it's like the fact that you hated him so much that you now dislike the movie as a result of it. That seems weird to me. But yeah, you're supposed to hate Lex Luthor, and boy, do they do such an excellent job at displaying him as he is not like in Smallville. He was sort of the tortured, misguided, really wanted to do good, but always went about it the wrong way. There is no redeeming quality to this Lex Luthor. He is scum. This dude is just the absolute pit of humanity. And
the level of hypocrisy was mind-blowing, especially at the end, where he's like, when Superman is like, why do you have such a beef? And he's like, because I want you out of here, because you're an alien, and I want to save the earth. In the process, he's in the middle of destroying the earth.
Yeah. I mean, it's all like this peak narcissism. This is another thing that was so comic booky about it, because it wouldn't work like this in the real world, but it works like this in their world. The fact that he's helping this other country and through this whole charade, so that he can establish his own kingdom, and which is so outlandish, but it works in this movie. But yeah, this Lex was he just an irredeemable, like, just soulless human. There's reason to hate him, but there is ample reason to fear him, because he is smart. Brilliant. And he is a strategist beyond anything else that has been seen.
And speaking of the map where he takes Baravia and Jahanpur or whatever and carves it up, what an homage to Gene Hackman. Because in the very first very first Superman movie, in his first meeting with Christopher Reeve Superman, he has this map and he's got like Luthorville on it, where he's carving up the US. So I thought that was a pretty cool callback to that. But there was a scene towards the very end when they're both standing in Luthor's little office thing. And Superman's like, what are you talking about, man? I'm like totally human. I make mistakes. I screw up. And, I think at that point, Superman was not only looking back to just his life, but the interview with Lois, where he got angry. And the thing he did in Baravia at the beginning, where he didn't let anybody know he was going over there to save people, and being able to display that humanity to a guy who thinks that he's incapable of being human. Meanwhile, Lex is being absolutely inhuman.
Yeah, like the Russian roulette game that he played with the guy that had the nerve to assist Superman and be nice to Superman on not one, but two, God forbid, occasions. He gave him a sandwich and he helped him out of a hole. And for that, this dude ended up at the end of a barrel where he played Russian roulette. And I thought for sure that there would be some Deus Ex Machina that would break up the scene, cause something. But no, instead, 2 rounds and that guy is done.
I was literally going to ask you, my next thing was literally going to ask you, did you think the guy was going to die in that scene? Because
nope.
Subverting expectations, which you had alluded to a couple of weeks ago, that how you like it when they do that in movies. I absolutely thought that guy was going to be able to worm his way out of this some way, shape, or when that gun went off, I literally,
And then he just slumped over. I was like, oh my
and I
God.
was like, oh my God, they fucking killed this guy.
Yeah, I was like, Lex really did it. Like
Yeah.
and then just his code
He
is like,
didn't
oh,
know.
I thought that was going to last longer. All right,
I
I'll
was like,
find
man.
another one. I'll be back.
I didn't realize I was going to go off that soon.
Well,
So
that
Go
leads me
ahead.
to another complaint that I kept getting where I was just like, what do you guys think that you're watching? And one of those complaints was Superman got beat up too much in this movie. Okay. Do you want the movie to last 10 minutes or do you want the movie to last 2 hours? Because if they can't get the better of Superman, the movie lasts 10 minutes. You know, it's like, oh, there's a
Right.
threat. Oh, nope, threat's gone. All right, cool. Well, tune in next time whenever we bring you Batman and Wonder Woman. Like, there's got to be, and it's explained. Everything is explained into how. So obviously, the Hammer of Baravia, Ultraman, got the upper hand on Superman because he's a clone of Superman. Also, how they got into the Fortress of Solitude. So that's how he was able to get into it, to get damaged by this guy. And it's like, so the fact that people were upset that Superman was getting bested, like that's how you make a story. It gives him something to overcome. Like, what is he supposed to overcome if he's just head and shoulders above everything?
Yeah.
I don't. It blows my mind.
And I'll tell you something else talking about comic booky in the movie, but there was a scene where he's in the apartment after a particularly hard day at the office and he's talking to Lois, but right outside the window, there's like this flying jellyfish beholder looking thing.
Love that.
And I'm sitting there going, what the hell is that thing? And it took me a while to realize, oh, Green Lantern and Hawk Girl and Mr. Terrific are fighting that thing right now. And he's just hanging out matter of factly. He's like, oh yeah, they got that. I'm not even.
I also love that in the background you could see Guy like create a massive baseball bat and then bing, bing.
Yeah. Which I thought that was because that's something you would see in a comic book, and it was excellent. Which brings me to another point. All of the comedy hit perfect in this movie. It was not too much. It was not too little. It was on point, which I thought was good.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people get upset about that scene as well, though, where the thing was they're like, no, that's not Superman would go out there just in case they couldn't handle it. Like,
maybe old school Superman would have. You're right.
But it's also like the whole thing is, you know, like you said, he's like, it's an imp, whatever. It's not. I did not see that as being some huge sin of the movie. I think it was a great way of showing just how exhausted and just disheartened Superman had become, where he's just like, no, they got it. It's fine. Because that was like almost immediately removed from the whole reveal about his parents, and he was still trying to process that. And then there was the fact about kryptonite. So I
was right.
I alluded to it before whenever there were no spoilers, but now we can talk about it. So they actually say, and some people might miss it. It goes pretty quick, but they actually say in the White House, whenever they bring up kryptonite, that they thought all of it was destroyed. And Lex basically confirms that all of the kryptonite is destroyed, but he has a workaround. So they basically confirm that kryptonite is no longer an existing element. And then, of course, their way around it is Metamorpho creating it himself, which was also a very clever and very comic booky way around it. I liked it.
It was. I feel like he should have been near some in order to have the ability to create it. And I feel like a lot of it was an easy way out so that he could still have kryptonite. I do like it that every story going forward will have no kryptonite.
See, I'm okay with it in service of. I'm okay with it in service of. I think it was done in order to usher it out, because, and I know a lot of people. If they do in fact do that, I hope that they do. I hope that kryptonite is no longer going to be a thing, and I know that if they do away with it, a lot of people will be very upset about that.
Oh, there'll be people going ape shit about it.
However, will be thrilled because I have said it so many times that is the difficulty of writing a compelling Superman comic is that
It's the kryptonite of writing a Superman story.
Yeah. because it's like, well, okay, well he's always better. He's always got the upper hand. Every movie's 10 minutes long because he's always the best. So and then if he's ever getting beaten, well, it's got to be kryptonite. It's kryptonite bullets, or it's kryptonite blade, or it's a kryptonite mace, or it's a cage made of kryptonite, or it's always kryptonite. And we got to find some way around it. And not only did this sort of usher in or sort of usher in an era where there is no kryptonite, it also kind of established through which I also love the way that it did the intro text where it's like 300 years ago, 30 years ago.
You were right about that, by the way. That was awesome.
But it also sort of implied in the way that the movie kind of went along that metahumans, maybe more powerful metahumans, can still get the upper hand on Superman, because they also had the thing where I can't remember the girl's name that had all the nanobots, but they did the thing like where she filled his lungs with the nanobots, and they're like, yeah, but he can hold his breath forever, so won't he be fine? And Lex Luthor said, only if his lungs are full of air, and they're not full of air right now. So, he can't hold his breath because there's no breath there. So they introduced ways that people can get the upper hand on him without kryptonite. So we can get around this boring trope that's just been this albatross around the neck of Superman for so long. And I'm excited about that.
Yeah, and I thought that was a good piece too, man. And I'm just going to say it, even though it was a little tidbit, I thought it was super cool to humanize Supergirl.
Yes.
At the very end. So we have Millie Alcock's character walk in, and she looks drunk as shit. And my literal immediate thought in my head was, wait a minute, they can't get drunk. And he immediately answered my question with, oh yeah, she typically goes to visit
red sun planets.
He goes vacationing on red sun planets so she can still get drunk. But dude, the spine buster that Crypto put on her that was worth its weight in gold right there. But I love introducing her that way, that, okay, here comes another hero that we know and love that is super justice American way, that is possibly super flawed. So
this gives her a place to start, and she will build from here. Yeah. She will become a better version of herself. It's going to be the hero's journey.
So outside, I know we promised just straight spoilers for here, but this isn't. Where do you think we go from here? What do you think the story is from here? If you just had to, if you were James Gunn, where would you go from here?
Well, that's the thing. Who knows? James Gunn, brilliant guy. He's done a lot here, and he's already said that they're taking the story somewhere that you would not expect, and that they're going to start leaving breadcrumbs in future projects. So obviously we need
Supergirl's the next one.
And then obviously we're going to we're going to work our way towards forming the Justice League, because they're not the Justice League yet. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with Batman. And I was in a conversation with one of our commenters. I would really love to see somebody like Alan Ritchson get it, because in the comics and the animated series, Batman's always portrayed as this hulking bruiser, like he's a giant chunk of a dude. Now in live action, we've never had that. And I think it as comic booky as this world is, I would love to see just a jack to the tits Bruce Wayne that stands head and shoulders above everybody else, and they still have no clue that this guy could be Batman. I want to see the hulking bruiser Batman that we have in the comics. So I put my hat in the ring for Alan Ritchson. I am casting my lot for Alan Ritchson as Batman. I want to see it.
So Alex and I always we have these, because more often than not he's hermited in his room, but when we're in the car, we have these fantastic conversations. And we talked about this on the way back to his mom's house last week, because he said that a lot of people have touted Alan Ritchson as possibly Batman, but also Aquaman. There's even been some fan art of him as Aquaman. I would rather see, like you, because the animated Batman's always this bird-legged dude with this gigantic, hulking, and nobody would do that better than Jack Reacher, man. And of course, I'm talking about Alan Ritchson, but Yeah,
I
absolutely.
want it. I want it. And there were a couple of things that I wanted to mention. So speaking of Millie Alcock, so this is one thing where
I'm so
Kintizen,
stoked to see her as Supergirl, man. Just go
me
ahead.
too.
Sorry.
Kintizen commented on our review video and said he prefaced it as a spoiler, so great job, Kintizen. But then it went down and he revealed more. It said how Kara is dealing with the entire thing is very human, and the "see ya bitch" was golden. You know, that's what she says to Superman at the end. So he liked that.
See ya.
And then I agreed, thought it was great. Well, then this is one of the things where I was like, okay, I don't get this. But we had Mini Peregrine 81 responded to that. How exactly is it human? Being a drunk driver, and while for some reason our yellow sun didn't sober her up, she was driving and drinking at the same time, potentially being a danger to anyone around her who are not indestructible. Calling someone a bitch is not golden whatsoever, or the sheer disrespect of the two characters and their legacies. And this is one of those where I would say, come on. Come on. To
I'm not
equate
going to use
this
that. I'm not going to use the K word name, but yeah, man.
to equate this with drunk driving is
Yeah.
a stretch.
it's
This
a
is one of
comic
those
book
things.
movie.
It was just meant to be a humorous way to introduce the character and show where the character is starting out, which is clearly a spoiled brat because she has not yet been tested. Superman has only been Superman for 3 years. So this is at a point where they have not been, or she has not been tested. She has not had to mature beyond this stage. This is setting her up for that. So equating her arrival to drunk driving or the endorsement of it is a stretch. And I think we are really looking for something to complain about if we get
Plus,
to that point.
I just want to
And
say too, have you not seen any, not you, but have you not seen any James Gunn movies? Because welcome to the James Gunn verse.
yeah, and then I there was a lot of this going on about how this movie is a flop. Now, let me get this out here, guys. So I get it. So this part was edited out of the video that I put out for the review because it just didn't serve the review itself. But
Right.
I had said yesterday, I'd said last week, I like Zack Snyder. I liked a lot of the Snyderverse movies. So I liked what Zack Snyder did. I liked the tone. I liked all that. But it's gone. It's gone. It's not coming back. If this burns down, they're not bringing Zack Snyder back. Okay? So you can let go of the Zack Snyderverse thing. It's not happening. So we need to either hope that this works and we can get more of it, or the entire DC universe just goes on ice for 5 years.
Yeah.
So those are our options. Make it work or you get nothing. I'm going to make it work. So that's one thing. Number two, this thing about how there are only flops and blockbusters. There's a lot of these headlines that'll make you think that. So everybody's calling this a flop. Let me tell you this. It is not a flop. It will not lose money. This will not lose money. It will make its money back. Will it make a ton of money back? Probably not. No, it's going to break even. It's going to make a little bit, but it's probably going to make around 700,000 global box office. And then, 700 million global box office. And then it's going to go and there'll be sales from rentals and purchases, digital, all that stuff. But this didn't need to be a blockbuster. Would Warner Brothers have wanted it to be a blockbuster? Sure. Yeah. They would have loved it if it made $1 billion, $2 billion. Yeah. Who wouldn't? Right. But this doesn't need to be. What it needed to be is what we got. It needed to be a solid movie, set up a universe to launch off of, and not lose money. And it's not going to lose money. And it laid foundation. What they need to do now. So this is step one. And it was a good movie. What they need to do now is what the MCU is failing to do. And that is make multiple good movies back to back to back. They need to stack wins. That's what Marvel started off doing. And then they got in their own way and they wanted to do their own thing. And they wanted to focus on this and that. And instead of focusing on stories, they focused on messages and this. And they went away and from their original thing, and they stopped making these banger after banger after banger, and they just started to suck. And that's why they're in the hole that they're in now, is because nobody, when a Marvel movie comes out, it used to be that it was just a given that it was going to be good. Now you're like, it's probably gonna be garbage, unless you hear differently. And so that's what DC's got to work against now. So they're starting over. They've got this thing. It didn't blow it out of the water as far as money goes. They're not going to break $1 billion at the box office, most likely, but it's not a flop either. What they got to do now is the next movie needs to build on that. And the next movie after that needs to build on that. They need to be successive movies that are just good movies that the audience can get behind. I'm shocked that this movie is as divisive as it is. And I think it's just because some people want to hate it because it's not the Snyderverse. But here's one thing that I do really appreciate is that now we now have so there's a lot of people there's people that I know that will say a superhero and they won't know if they're Marvel or DC. They won't know if this person's in the Marvel verse or the DC verse or whatever. They don't, because they're not super nerds like we are. But now the DCU and the MCU feel nothing like one another. MCU is gritty and grounded and feels like it's in our world. The DCU is not our world. Everything is out there. It's so exaggerated. They now have two completely different feelings, which I am sure is 100% intentional from James Gunn. So we now have two different vibes, which I also like. So anyways, I don't know. I went down that rabbit hole, but it's not a flop, guys. It's not a flop. It's going to make its money back. So it's not a flop. And cheering for its failure, I just don't understand, because if this fails, we get nothing. Like on Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. You get nothing. You lose.
You lose. You get nothing. Please leave, sir.
Yes. So I don't want that. I want this to make it, and it just so happens that they made an awesome movie. I am really intrigued by the world that they created.
Oh man. So, started thinking about too while I was watching the movie. I wish I hadn't done it while I was watching it, but the actual Justice League and who they're going to have in the Justice League. And obviously part of me really wants the canon OG Justice League, where it's Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, Flash, Green Arrow, Aquaman. I don't think that's where we're going to go, but I hope
I think we'll get there.
Weird.
It's not necessarily going to be where we go immediately, but I do think we'll get there.
Yeah.
Apparently, I didn't notice this. I'm going to watch Superman again whenever my son comes back from Europe. He's in the Vatican right now. But whenever he gets back, we're going to watch Superman. And apparently in the Hall of Justice, there are posters or paintings up on the wall of these classic Superman or of these classic characters like Joe Garrick's Flash and all of that. So what was it? Joe Garrick? Was that the name of the original Flash? Jay Garrick. So I didn't notice them, but that's apparently there was several like nods like that. So I think we'll get there. It's just might not get there immediately, but I'm looking forward to the OG lineup as well.
Yeah, me too. I really hope, because I heard they've already talked to, or at least asked Grant Gustin. Dude, I really feel like they got to bring him back as the Flash.
He's the best Flash that we've ever
been. Yeah,
for sure. 100%.
And I love Stephen Amell as the Arrow, but I think we could still get somebody to play the Arrow.
Yeah.
Especially since I don't think Stephen Amell fits the James Gunn mold.
No.
I feel like Grant Gustin would be fine.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think Grant would be perfect for it.
But yeah, I mean, I've heard Taron Egerton's name's mentioned, the kid from the Kingsman, which I think he would be good in a role that would probably fit. But man, yeah, all in all, love the movie. Glad I saw it. Looking forward to seeing where he goes from here.
Yeah, I was super happy with the movie. But like I said, was cautiously optimistic for it. And then whenever I saw it, I was so pleased with what we got. And again, James Gunn just has a way with these fantastic elements and making them feel grounded. And obviously he directed and wrote this movie, but I also feel a lot better knowing that even the movies that he does not write, does not direct, he will be a presence and an influence on them, that he is the guy
Yeah.
guiding the DC universe. So guiding a universe like this, I think I don't think anybody else could do it other than James Gunn. I just don't think anybody else could do it with these elements. This comic booky, this insane, even to the point, like I said, where it's like so comic book, like where the shit posters on the internet were a bunch of sentient monkeys. Like this is so comic booky in every single element.
And he hit,
Gunn.
he hit the Easter egg quotient with all the real DC fans too. Like we saw ads for Big Belly Burger, and they mentioned Jitters and little things like that really kind of hit home with people that have been lifelong fans. So I thought that was cool.
One thing that I'd mentioned or hinted at last week that, again, I love, that I can just now say, is I love, and anybody that goes into this and they tell you, oh, this movie is woke, this messaging is just all over.
I didn't get that.
They're fighting with ghosts, man. There is nothing in there like this. They go out of their way to make sure it's gone. And that's where I was saying there was a joke about it where the guy says, which is James Gunn's brother, where he's like, says that, well, one thing that both Democrats and Republicans can agree on is that Lex Luthor's an asshole. Where it's like the whole thing is like, they're not trying to do that. That's why I was so happy that the world doesn't look like ours. So we don't have to get this thing that we're constantly bombarded with in the news, the media, all this back and forth. This isn't a thing where it seeps into your entertainment. There's none of that. There's no sides being picked. It's just go and put it away. I know you're used to going into a movie and you got it, whatever side you're picking, you got to be prepared to like deal with the stuff. It's just not there. It's just not there. Just leave it at the door and just enjoy the movie. It's safe. It's just fun. It's just good, dumb fun. And you don't have to worry about picking a side or anything like that. It's just good fun, and just leave all that other crap at the door.
Speaking of good, dumb fun, I know this is a definite departure, but I got to ask, did you get to watch Heads of State?
Not yet.
Oh,
Not
okay.
yet.
Okay. Well, man, that's all I had then.
Yeah. Well, that's all I got. And I believe this is probably our longest show on record.
Yeah, man.
This quick one that we were going to have, but it always seems to work that way. But thank you, everybody, so much for joining us. Thank you for getting us to 100 subscribers. We cannot thank you enough. And you guys are the OGs. So, appreciate it. And on to 250. We'll get the merch store going. We'll keep you updated on that. That's all I've got. Thank you so much.
Thank y'all. Y'all have a great night. Enjoy the rest of your week.